You have kingdom Monera, and then kingdom Monera. The difference between the specialty of this kingdom is that it's the only kingdom that has prokaryotic cells. Every other kingdom are made up of eukaryotic cells. That means it's the only kingdom that has its nucleus to be scattered in the cytoplasm of the cell. Like I told you earlier, it's a prokaryotic nucleus, a nucleus that have no membrane. So these are the characteristics of monerans. They are motile with few non-motile ones. They are very microscopic. Microscopic means they can only be seen with the aid of a microscope. They are mostly saprophytes. What are saprophytes? Saprophytes are they are microorganisms that feed on dead organic matter, decomposing them to release ammonia gas. And then we have few parasitic ones. They exhibit asexual mode of reproduction. What type of asexual mode of reproduction do they exhibit? They exhibit binary fission and multiple fission. And then you should know that they are divided into two broad groups. And these groups are cyanobacteria and your bacteria. Some textbooks will give it to you as schizophytes and cyanophyta. They mean the same thing. Whether schizophytes or bacteria, they mean the same thing. Whether cyanobacteria, cyanophyta, or blue-green algae, they mean the same thing. So let's start off with bacteria. If somebody walks up to you and says, give me examples of bacteria, what would you tell the person? You tell the person based on what? Now, classification of bacteria could be based on its oxygen intake or based on its shape. If we have to classify bacteria based on its shape, we have round circular bacteria. Those ones are called cocci. Now, these cocci can be in groups of twos. When they're in group of twos, they are called diplococci. Now, examples of your diplococci, as you can see there, is your gonococcus. Now, when they are found in clusters, like they come together like this, they are called staphylococcus. The example of your staphylococcus is your Staphylococcus aureus, Staphylococcus epidermidis. For those of you that have pimples, it's caused by Staphylococcus epidermidis. You can also have chain-like bacteria, round circular bacteria. They form chains around, usually they are found around the neck region. They are called streptococci. That's why for you to cure or deal with streptococcal infections, oftentimes you'll be asked to use strepsils. I don't know whether some of you would have heard the word strepsils. It's an antibiotic. So, apart from the cocci, we also have rod-like bacteria. These ones are called bacillus. The bacillus can be Bacillus thuringiensis, Bacillus cereus, Bacillus subtilis, Bacillus israeliensis, lots of them. And you also have your spirochetes. Those are examples of bacteria based on their shape. If you have to classify them based on their oxygen intake, then you have the aerobic bacteria, and these ones survive in the presence of oxygen. You have the anaerobic bacteria, they survive in the absence of oxygen. You have the facultative anaerobes, or the obligate anaerobes. They survive in the absence or presence of oxygen. They survive in the presence or absence of oxygen. I think these words are not too big for you. Now the other one is blue-green algae. If I ask you to give me examples of blue-green, it's possible for them to say, which of these is not a cyanophyte? What I just tried to tell you is, which of these is not a blue-green algae? Just know your blue-green algae, the one you should know as an O-level student. You have your nostoc, your anavena, your celaturia, your calotris. These are examples of blue-green algae. Let's go to the second kingdom. If you look at this kingdom here, it's called the kingdom Protista. Let's look at some differences between Monera and Protista. Unlike Moneras, these ones are a little bit larger in size than the Moneras. Another thing you should know is they are not microscopic, but we can neither classify them as plants or animals, because here we have two broad groups, but all of them are eukaryotes. protists are divided into two types. You have the protozoans and the protophytes. The protozoans are protozoans are animal-like protists. Protophytes are plant-like protists. When we say protozoans, what are the examples of protozoans you know? You have amoeba, you have plasmodium, you have trypanosome, and then you have paramecium. Now we all know, I think many of you would have come across amoeba and paramecium, but Plasmodium is a disease, is a malaria-causing protozoan. And then the vector, we all know the vector. The vector is what? A female Anopheles mosquito. Now what that female Anopheles mosquito carries around and injects into your body is a Plasmodium parasite. There are 4 species of Plasmodium parasite. You have Plasmodium vivax, you have Plasmodium ovale, you have Plasmodium falciparum, and then you have Plasmodium malariae. In this part of Africa, West Africa, the Plasmodium falciparum is the one often isolated. Now when you go for a malaria parasite test in West Africa, oftentimes this is what you see. Malaria causing protozoan is usually a Plasmodium falciparum. So we leave that. We look, how do these ones reproduce? They reproduce asexually and they also reproduce sexually. Something is worthy of note here. There's a unique protist, we call it the Igcse viridis. Igcse viridis. It's a protist, quite alright, but we can't classify it as a protozoan. Neither can we classify it as a protophyte because it has both plant and animal-like features. If you wake up in the morning and you see someone with female and male characteristics, how would you greet the person? You start off by saying, good morning, ma, sir, isn't it? Mm-hmm. But here, we can't classify such person as a woman, neither can we classify such person as a man, because the person is having both the male and the female characteristics. Oftentimes we call them hermaphrodites. But here in the protist kingdom, such organisms are neither classified as protozoans or protophytes. A typical example is your Igcse viridis. So I will drop in my section how to give me differences between the plant-like characteristics and the animal-like characteristics of Igcse viridis. One thing you should know, Igcse viridis has eye spots, it has eye gullets, it has plasma membrane. Those are animal-like characteristics. Now the plant-like characteristics is the presence of a pyrenoid, the presence of, it has chloroplast, it has chlorophyll, that means it can make food itself. Characteristics of autotrophs. So that's about that for kingdom Protista. Let's go straight to the third kingdom, kingdom fungi. They are also called saprophytes. I said earlier on that monerans are also saprophytes. So it's not just bacteria that act on dead organic matter. If a rat dies today, give that rat 4 days, you will notice that the rat will swell. It's not swelling because it is chopping better food. It's because microbes are acting on it. So they are decomposing it, and before you know it, you begin to perceive that ammonia smell. It decomposes it to produce ammonia gas. Now they are mostly multicellular. Mostly means, I didn't say all of them are multicellular. They are mostly multicellular. An example of a unicellular fungus is your yeast. Yeast is not multicellular, it's a unicellular fungus. They have thread-like structures called a hyphae that fuses together to form your mycelium. The mycelium in fungi serves as the false root. That's what they use to attach. For example, for those of you that love this Nigerian agege bread, you will notice that if you put that bread under your bed for, let's say, 2 weeks, bring it out after 2 weeks, you would have noticed some visitors on the bread. Those things are called fungi. They are called fungi. It's actually called Rhizopus nigricans. It's actually called Rhizopus nigricans. Those things you find on the bread. Another name for them is a normal name for them is your bread mold. So that's that. They are heterotrophs. As much as fungi looks bad, they have economic importance. Let's look at the economic importance of fungi. Fungi can be used in the production of penicillin. Penicillin is an antibiotic. Now, how did we get penicillin? We got penicillin from the processing of what? Penicillium. Penicillium is a fungus. Number two, they are used in the production of POP. POP is plaster of Paris. Plaster of Paris. Plaster of Paris. So you notice that white thing people carry around when they have fracture on their hand or dislocation. It's called POP. What do we use in making it? Fungi. Another thing you should know, we can use fungi in the production of beer. All the beer you see around, fungi is used in their production. Now there are two types of things we use in production of beer. If you look at your yogurt, if you look at your beer, if you go through the ingredients they use in making them, you will notice that for those of you that are very observant, is either they use this fungus called Saccharomyces cerevisiae, or they use a bacterium called Lactobacillus bulgaricus. Now from today, just be looking at the pack of your yogurt. If you don't see Saccharomyces cerevisiae there, you will see Lactobacillus bulgaricus. So this is a bacterium, while this is a fungus. They can be interchangeably used in the production of beer. Another thing you should know is that they are used as fertilizers to replenish soil fertility, to improve the fertility of the soil. Please also note that fungi can be used as raising agents. If I take a flour now, I want to bake bread. If I add a fungus, a specific fungus called yeast to it, what happens to the bread? The bread will swell, and then I can have multiples of that. So let's look at examples of fungus. You have mushroom, you have mucor, you have rhizopus, aspergillus, you have penicillium, you have fusarium, you have your bread mold, you have your toadstool, you have many of them. So that's that about kingdom fungi. So we want to go to the last two kingdoms before we call it a wrap on the first part of this class.